Okay. So, Assalamu alaikum. First of all, thank you guys for coming. We decided that now, we want to go back to having the halakas, and I know that Dr. Yamina had said if someone moderates, she'll join us. So I decided I can hopefully take up that responsibility. Please, be gentle. If I'm not doing a good job, give me feedback. We were thinking we could start with the 29th word, inshallah. It's kind of long, but we're not in a rush, and we'll just go. Oh, thank you, Strabla, for the link in the chat for anyone who wants to read along. We'll just go through, read, and then for any questions, comments, we'll just have a discussion. If anyone wants to say anything before we get started, feel free to just jump in or raise your hand. And I will make sure that we end at 1 hour. So we're respectful of everyone's time. Is that all right with everyone?
Yes.
Okay. So I hope you guys got a chance to take a look at the 29th word. This one is about immortality of man's spirit, the immortality of man's spirit, the angels, and the resurrection. So, Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. Allahumma salli ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali Sayyidina Muhammad. We start with 2 verses. So the first one is, therein came down the angels and the spirit by the permission of their sustainer. And the second one is, say, the spirit comes by command of my sustainer. So I was looking at these verses because, obviously Ustad Nursi has a reason for putting them here and why these specific verses. And we were discussing the 29th word in a different halakha as well. And the first ayah is from the 97th chapter in the Quran, which is Surah al-qadr. And that's about, the revelation of the Quran and the first time, I guess, Quran is revealed to Prophet Muhammad. And then, we have this verse about the angels and the spirit. And then the second one is in the 17th chapter, which is Surah al-Isra. So, and that's about, the night journey of the Prophet and the daily prayers, broadly speaking. So I was thinking about how what we see in the 29th word also is that angels seem to have a really important part in our life, or our life as human beings. And of course, we have the very famous dialogue between the angels and God when God is creating human beings, or Adam sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So this halakha series, I think, is gonna help us with understanding why they're so central to our story or to humanity, because they're kind of there from the very beginning. Whenever we see verses about faith in the Quran, they're always second to faith in God. So, it's belief in God, believe in the angels, and then the books and the prophets. So they have this kind of like important centrality to them that, for me, in my personal life, I don't really feel. They sort of feel very abstract to me. So I hope that they can kind of be a bit more solid after we do this discussions. Or I don't know if you guys have different opinions about how central you find angels to your life, please share. And then we can kind of start, because I feel like we hear a lot about, we hear about the archangels, we hear about them being around us, but do they really mean anything to you in your daily life? Or how does it factor in?
Shalom, Nur Banu. This is Inaba,
I
and I would just like to say that I also have the same question that you have about, like, why are they even necessary? Since God is all powerful, why is there something that angels are doing that is necessary? Or is it just nice to have? Essentially, angels. So for me, I would really like to understand some of the wisdom in the creation of angels, and because if I'm going to believe in it, then it seems like I ought to see some meaning or some reason or some benefit of having angels.
Yeah, I feel the same way. That was actually one of the questions that I wrote when I was doing the reading. So let's start the reading and then maybe we can get to that. So this treatise consists of an introduction and two main aims. Introduction. It may be said that the existence of the angels and spirit beings is as definite as that of human beings and animals. Indeed, as is explained in the first step of the 15th word, reality undoubtedly requires, and wisdom certainly demands, that like the earth, the heavens have inhabitants, and that its inhabitants are intelligent and suitable for the heavens. In the tongue of the Sharia, those inhabitants, of which there are numerous kinds, are called angels and spirit beings. So some of the things that immediately struck my attention with this paragraph were that their existence is supposed to be very definite, right? So just as we believe that human beings and animals exist, we see them with our eyes, like I know I exist, my cats exist. I am supposed to believe that angels have that same certainty of existence. And in my mind, there isn't even supposed to be a question. So that's kind of like the first claim. And then we have this distinction, which I struggle with, this distinction between wisdom and reality. So reality requires that they exist, and wisdom also demands it. And we can kind of talk about those two. And that, angels exist, they definitely exist, and they are intelligent. So they are conscious beings, and the way they have been created, or the way that they are, we're supposed to believe that they're suitable for the places in which they exist. So from here, in Anaba, like you said, I always struggle with this point of why do we need them, just because, especially in Revelation, we always see them doing things. So like Gabriel brings down revelation, right? Or the angels on our shoulders record our deeds, or the angel of death takes our soul when we die. So they have these duties, which to me seem okay, that's fine, but I know that, or maybe like that I'm speaking from like memorization, but I feel like, what's the point of having them do those things? Because it feels like those things could just be done without any middle being. And then with other examples or with more common understanding of angels, I ask myself, like, even if they do exist, what does it matter to me? So like if they do exist in the heavens, what does that have to do with me? Why really should I care? Like if there are all these different kinds of angels are on Saturn or in different galaxies or in the depths of the ocean, I can't really relate it to my life. Do you guys have any ideas about what the existence of angels could mean for our lives?
Assalamu
Uh,
alaikum. Yes, you mentioned the angels on our shoulder, one who writes all the good deeds, and the one on the left. And when we finish salah, we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I interpreted that as I'm saying salams to the angels when I'm finishing my prayer. But angels, they definitely have a role. They are a perfect being, and we are not a perfect being. And the perfect being worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala perfectly. So they are always worshipping Allah. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created those angels. And when you say you don't need a middleman, I mean, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends the winds. So he's appointed an angel to do that job. He's appointed an angel to do, whatever task the universe requires, even though Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can do all this and he doesn't get tired and he doesn't sleep. But these beings worship him perfectly, which what Allah requires us to do, but we can't because we are weak and we are human beings and we make mistakes. So it's deserving of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have, I say something, but a spirit that he has created perfectly to worship him. That's how I see it. That, otherwise, who's worshiping him perfectly?
Yeah. Does anyone else have anything to say about that?
And they have many tasks. The angel in the grave, the angel at the doors of the gates of heaven or hell, or they've been created to serve Allah.
But I think that's a bit, not where Nur Banu is asking the question from, because they have these duties. She mentioned that as well. But God doesn't need anything. From that perspective, when we think that way, then he can create everything. He doesn't need the angels for winds and things like that. So that's what her question is, I think.
But who are we to say he doesn't need?
Because
who are we to say he doesn't need an angel to do?
Doesn't need anything, right?
Right. He doesn't need us to do anything. He doesn't need us to worship him. So how can we question the Allah?
I think the way this is framing, and I think Dr. Yamina, alhamdulillah, she's here, and she can help us think about this more clearly. But we're just putting on the table our questions, and one of the questions is kind of to recognize that yes, they have these tasks, yes, but they are also one of the pillars of faith. And why is there? It's not why like it shouldn't have been. We don't know. We're just trying to understand.
Okay, I get you.
Yeah, we're putting on the table our need for understanding. Like we don't know the wisdom. That
I understand the point of view that they.
Yeah, I'm glad. The framing is that we're not questioning. It's we're just putting on it. We're probably the way we're asking the question is.
Oh, okay, I get it.
But we're trying to kind of understand this reference to angels and ruh and.
Okay, I understand then, because I mean these are articles of faith that we cannot be Muslims.
Exactly.
And
she started with, I don't know if you were here. She said that.
Yeah.
So and why is it so significant as an article of faith? Yeah.
All of these articles of faith are things that we haven't seen, which is the same as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if you think about, I haven't seen this article of faith, heaven, hell, but it exists. The prophets exist. I never saw them. Allah exists. So these are all to do with believing in the unseen, and the unseen leads us to, I guess, more affirmation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his immense capacity of what he can do. So we have to believe in it in order to, yeah, okay, I get it. I'm sorry if I question why are we questioning this. SubhanAllah. I appreciate your discussion. Thank you, Isra. And I have to leave to pray Asr, so I won't be participating, but I'll leave my phone on and I'll come back to it. Okay? Jazakallah.
We'll wait for you. Someone had raised their hand. Yamina, I think.
Yes, it was me. I was just thinking, going back to that question as to the fact that it is said that Allah doesn't need the angels to be praying to him. He can do everything himself, but he has assigned them to do certain tasks. And I am of the opinion that maybe he did this just so that we know that it is possible to worship Allah in a perfect way, and having the angels as an example in front of us. He probably wanted us to interact and see in this way.
Yeah, go ahead, Isra.
I just want to ask if Dr. Yamina wants to offer some guidance here, even as we're starting to frame the issues.
Assalamu alaikum. Inshallah, everyone is doing well. Eventually, we will get some answers, inshallah. From the beginning, the sister, I think it was Zubaydah, who said, we don't worship God perfectly because we're human beings and we forget, and sometimes we just choose not to do so, astaghfirullah. And Allah deserves perfect worship that looks to what he calls here haqiqat, reality. And that argument will come later, which is the purpose of creation. It looks to the purpose of creation. That's the haqiqah, the truth. The other looks to wisdom, which is we can infer from what we observe. That's why Shahada is so central in our religion, in Islam, in the teachings of the Quran, and we need to first understand, because there is no Iman without evidence. Otherwise, that's not Iman, that's just a claim that has not been grounded in not only in our understanding, which is the first step, and then in our heart, which becomes yaqeen. And there are also degrees in yaqeen, in certainty. So when it looks to wisdom, wisdom requires the existence of these beings, and we can come back to the first paragraph, which is what he's saying, that just like there are inhabitants and intelligent, and at some degree they have some consciousness in this earth around us. There are beings with different levels of life, for instance, plants and insects and animals, and even among animals there are degrees. So too he's saying the heavens have inhabitants. Although here heavens does not mean the skies necessarily, not only that. So wisdom requires the existence of these beings. The question when we start with we are Muslims and therefore we believe in God, we believe in the angels. Yes, that's correct, but that's not what we are doing here. Now we want to conclude that. We can't start with that as taken. We are starting with that as an invitation, as a teaching from the Quran, and we are seeking to confirm what we are taught. And this is the approach in this work in the Risale-i Nur. So he's taking us onto a journey where we learn how to perform the Shahada. And at the end, we will say, yes, we believe in God, and belief in God requires belief in the angels. Without true conscious beings, belief in the angels, my belief in God is going to be incomplete, let's say. So we are not taking Iman, belief in God or in the angels, for granted. Each time, even if I have some belief in God that is based on evidence, that is based on observation, that is based on knowledge, it's not the end. Every day we are created anew, when the whole creation is renewed. It's a new opportunity for us to not only renew our Iman, as we are told in the hadith, but also to increase our Iman. And if it does not increase, as we are told in as the Prophet ﷺ teaches us, then we are going backward because something new is happening in the world. And instead of going, and we are staying in the same, at the same level. So here, the whole thing is we need evidence. And that's what we want to do here. The whole thing, the questions that are being asked are taking, there is something that's being taken for granted and that is the angel. So it is an implicit understanding or misunderstanding of what angel is, and therefore, and then we say, what do we even need them? What are they? What do they have to do with me? And the implicit understanding is something that we are assuming about what the angels are. Some beings that have some functions that we learned from the Quran or from the tradition, they do this and that and that. But in our imagination, Allahu A'lam, how we are imagining them, that, and because we didn't go through the process of confirming and affirming and getting to being acquainted with this creation of God, then it seems like what is in my imagination doesn't fit the world. So there we need to be conscious of that and bracket it out and at least question it and say, maybe it's what I'm thinking the angels are. Maybe that's not what it is. Maybe the angels is something that is actually necessary. They are here. And the title is already giving us a clue, which is the baqa al-ruh, the immortality of the ruh, the spirit, and the angels. And the ruh and the angels are related somehow. I'll just say one thing is, the more we live from the ruh, from who we truly are, the more likely we are going to interact with the creation at at various degrees. And so the more likely we will become aware of the angelic aspect of the creation. I'm not saying angels yet, but let's say the angelic aspect. And the more we learn to interact with the world and to perceive the world as we are taught in the Quran, as ayat, as beings that have purpose, that have meaning, that can be read, and that can be listened to, and that can be communicated with. I'm not talking about communicating with the birds and this and that, or special things. Communicating with everything at the level of everything is coming with messages from the unseen, messages about the creator, about the sustainer of everything. Everything is glorifying the names of God, is praising God. And when we become acquainted with this aspect of the creation, and the more we become involved and we join in the glorifications, then we will know the angels. We will be aware of the angels. So I'll end with one sentence: is just like we are not bones and flesh and bones, the creation is not just physical matter. The sea is just not H2O or whatever minerals or and this. A tree is not pure, just physical. There is a physical side, and there is a side that speaks to us, the beauty, the form, the meaning, the consciousness, the who is holding all that. The second ayah is قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي, right? It's here. Say the spirit comes by the command of my sustainer. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Ruh is from Amr, and everything in the creation is also from Amr. Kun fayakun. That Amr, who holds, who is the throne of the Amr? Malaikatun. Well, it's about hell, but still it's malaikatun ghiladun shidadun la ya'suna Allah ma amarahum wa yaf'aluna ma yu'marun. So the angels, we are told, yaf'aluna ma yu'marun. They are the receivers of Amr. Amr. The divine command from God's aspect. There is a kun fayakun and a command. From our aspects, it starts becoming something. The between that looks to the angel, the angels, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Yamina. I'll read a little bit more, and then we can see where it goes, inshallah. Reality requires it to be thus. For despite the earth's smallness and insignificance in relation to the heavens, its being filled with intelligent beings and from time to time being emptied and then refilled with new ones, suggests, indeed states clearly, that the heavens too, with their majestic constellations like adorned palaces, are filled with animate creatures, the light of existence, and conscious and intelligent creatures, the light of animate creatures. Like men and the jinn, those creatures are spectators of the palace of the world and ponderers over the book of the universe and heralds of this realm of dominicality. With their universal, comprehensive worship, they represent the glorification of the large and universal beings in the universe. One thing I liked here, or that caught my attention, was this idea of existence and then the light of existence, or I guess, I don't know, what makes existence shine is animation or life. And then what kind of is the most mature, the best part of that is intelligence and conscience. So we're looking for a sort of being that's not just animate, but one that can think, one that's aware of its own existence. And that's what's kind of suitable, right? Because what we see later here, right, is that we need spectators and ponderers and heralds. So none of these things are passive, right? Spectators have to pay attention, they have to see, they have to observe. Ponderers think, reflect on what they're seeing, and heralds, they announce something or they beckon, they have some sort of news maybe. So the sort of being or what we should understand when we think about angels or these other kind of creatures have these qualities. And the reason they need to have these things, right, is because we see a lot of emphasis on how creation itself is very beautiful, it's very intentional. The language here is very like, pay attention to me, right? It's majestic constellations, adorned palaces. We never like dress something up or decorate it for it to be for nothing. So it requires the sort of give and take, or it requires a witnessing, shahada, which we already kind of mentioned. And then obviously, we talked about the Earth's smallness and insignificance, right? I'm sure you've seen those kind of videos where they kind of zoom out and they show how, like, if you zoom out enough, or if you kind of try to look at the whole galaxy, the Earth is just like very, very tiny. And even in this very tiny place, right now we have close to 8 billion people. And that's just right now. And we've been around for thousands of years. And of course, there are all these other creatures. So the text is saying, even on this very small, kind of insignificant rock, which is how people usually talk about it. But Dr. Yamina just said, it's not just matter. In any way, in this small place, we see so much change. And from ourselves, we know that, we're very conscious. We see, observe, think, talk. So he's saying, okay, if even in this very small place, even in this kind of corner of the universe, this is what we witness, then it makes sense, or it kind of opens up the question that there should be similar things going on in the rest of the universe. That's kind of what I understood from here. Did anything catch your attention? Or do you want me to continue?
Something that is catching my attention is that when given my own situation, of being a human being and having found myself on this beautiful earth, and the earth being unable to explain itself by itself, and the way that it points to a maker, and the way that it shows like the attributes of the maker, which are show me like things like love and care and beauty, that now makes logical sense to me, that since since the maker of what I know of myself being on this earth, you know, has shown me the kind of maker that he is, one that is loving and caring and does things with purpose, and wouldn't have just created something that has no meaning at all. So therefore it is logical that the heavens also have been created with love and care and for some great purpose. So that now makes a lot of sense to me, but it's because of having a sense of experience or trust in the attributes of the maker.
Thank you, Naba. Do you mean like coming to this, or just like based on what you already confirmed for yourself in your faith? Like you already know that things in the universe are signs, or they point to something beside themselves or beyond themselves, that this part of the logic makes sense with regards to that?
Exactly, because of a long process of trying to understand just being human on this earth and what this life has told me, this existence has pointed to. Because of processing that and sort of coming to understand attributes of the creator with real, like with confirmation, but with also experience, like, wow, you really do love your creation. Like, I noticed how you wouldn't have made this earth so wonderful if you didn't love us. And so from that sort of intimate knowing of an experience of confirmation of who this maker is, it would make perfect sense to me that this maker, if this maker is making other things, that those other places would also be made with care and love and meaning, since that's the experience that we can recognize here. It would make sense that an artist who expresses a certain style of creation in one place, that you could very easily expect that that style of creation is existing elsewhere.
Thank you for sharing. Really like that. Sorry, I was just taking notes.
I had a question about the light of existence. Somehow the emphasis of light really, I was just wondering what that was referring to.
Dr. Yamina or Isra, if you guys want to enlighten us, or if you have opinions, I guess. This is, it's hard for me too. I mean, I was looking at, it was hard with the English. I looked at the Turkish too. You know, the light of existence, he says, and then he's using the word Nur for both of these. And then he says the light of existence is having life, or the way it's translated here is, you know, animate creatures. But I feel like light is kind of abstract, but the way I was thinking about it is when we think about, usually, you know, in the Risale we see this emphasis on existence versus non-existence, and how existence, like point blank, it's the best thing ever. Like just to exist is, it can't really be compared to non-existence. So going off of that, I thought, obviously there are different kinds of ways of existing. I could have existed as, I don't know, like a dust particle, or I could, be a flower, or could be a human being. Obviously this is kind of like, it doesn't mean those things are not important, but I guess it just maybe gives us a better way of interacting with the rest of creation than, if you were a cat or something else. That's my humble interpretation. But if you guys want to keep pondering, I will keep reading, and then we can come back to that. Okay. Let's see. The nature of the universe surely points to their existence. For since it is embellished and decked out with uncountable numbers of finely adorned works of art and meaningful decorations and wise embroideries, it self-evidently requires the gazes of thoughtful admirers and wondering, appreciative lovers. It demands their existence. Yes, just as beauty requires a lover, so is food is given to the hungry. Thus, the sustenance of spirits and nourishment of hearts in this boundless beauty of art looks to the angels and spirit beings. It points to them. For while this infinite adornment requires an infinite duty of contemplation and worship, man and the jinn can perform only a millionth of that infinite duty, that wise supervision, that extensive worship. This means that boundless varieties of angels and spirit beings are necessary to perform those duties and to fill and inhabit the mighty mosque of the world with their ranks. I thought this part was the most intuitive, honestly. Just because if you've, ever hosted people over at your house, or if you're an artist, or even if you're an academic, most things we do, even the tiny, tiny things, when we put effort and thought into it, it's usually because, not because, but it's with this idea that it's going to be observed and seen, consumed in some way, and it represents us. So I kind of like that the whole universe is this really adorned, decorative, intentional work of art, and we only get to contemplate and think about and ponder a very, very tiny fraction of it. So the rest is still very beautiful, but it's beyond our reach for contemplation and observation. So this was like a good, I don't know, it was a good argument for the existence of angels, and like one duty that they have, or one sort of imagining them. I'm sorry. Yeah, but if you guys have any thoughts about at this part, I thought it was really, really beautiful. Or we can continue.
Just in answer to Sarah's question, in the Turkish, it seems because it says, just a second, inshallah. Nuru, vücudun nuru olan zihayat ve zihayatın ziyası olan zişur. So it's clearly that life is like light, and the light of light is consciousness. So the higher the consciousness and the intelligence, the more light. I mean, why does he use the name of God light? Because, or the word light, because light allows us to see our surroundings. It allows us to see what we could not see without. So the first is, once there is life, already it works both ways. The being that receives life and consciousness, and the one who is the conscious beings, let's say ourselves, watching around us, the more something is alive, the more it uncovers and displays more and more the maker and the creator and the purpose of life. It becomes clearer and clearer. And I could not really follow or what Inaba was talking about. Okay, and I agree with, but I could not follow how it is related to what we read here. Yes, it's true. If I know God in a certain way, then it's like the so-called laws of nature. If something happens, that's why they call it law. There is, we take the uniformity of the creation for granted. It's already in our fitra, that if something happens here, it must be happening in the same way somewhere else. So if Allah is the artist, if he creates with beauty, then we understand and we can be sure that he creates everywhere with beauty. But here it seems to be a little bit different, which is we do see that he's creating with beauty. For instance, in the ocean, from time to time, we get some pictures or some videos, but most of the oceans, we don't know what's going on. But we see that there is beauty there in the smallest and the biggest, in the largest, in the galaxies, in the stars and things. It's not, there is nothing random, there is nothing haphazard, and it's beautiful even to the eye, to the layman. Everything is done so artistically, so beautifully. So from this wisdom, we can infer that, if I'll leave it here and take another example. If I go somewhere and just find a beautiful garden and everything is very well designed, and then I enter and there is a hall before I enter the house, and there are all these pieces of arts and pictures on the walls, I don't assume that there is no one in this house. I understand that there must be people living around here, and people who are sophisticated, who understand, who appreciate beauty, who appreciate, look, all these flowers, all these pictures, all these decorations. I feel like here it's the second reasoning. So even both are here. I know God, and therefore he, everywhere he must create. But here he's saying even on earth, he created all these beings. Do you think that it's like in your little house, your little decorations. You think you appreciate them, but you find these palaces with all kinds of decoration, and you think they are empty. You think there is no one there who appreciates it. Like, what kind of self-absorbed, and actually we don't even think, we just think if these beings have to be like us, otherwise they don't exist, because we never even thought about it. So here he's inviting us to start thinking in a different way, and the thinking is going to open the path to a possible contemplation, because in order to really grasp this reality, we need to contemplate, but we need something to contemplate with. So here, look around all these things. There must be appreciators, let's say. All this beauty, there must be. I mean, we don't make something for no reason, no purpose. Why would there be something out there so perfect, so beautiful, but if I'm not there to appreciate it, there must be no one else? He's saying, no, there are other beings. Wallahu alam.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, our experience here is that we have noticed that someone has made this world for us. That's what we've learned about the maker of it. We learned that the maker is a maker who does something with an intention of, or I don't want to say it that way, does something in a way that others will feel love from him through it, or will feel and will praise him through it. So that being the style that we notice, that he does things for observers or for glorifiers, and for ones who will find joy in it, appreciate it, love him back for it, recognize who he is for it, be conscious about it. So that's my point, that our experience here is that he's created beautiful things, as well as those who can become conscious of those beautiful things and thereby receive his love and love him back. And so that is now logical, that style of creation where he would create something beautiful, and we know it's beautiful even though we haven't seen it all, but the portion that we've seen has convinced us because of its magnificence. Then we could also be that style includes consciousness, something to be conscious of what has been made.
I think I liked that, like the way that we have to kind of flip how we're thinking about it from what Dr. Yamina said. So here the examples are a little weird to me. Just as beauty requires a lover, so as food is given to the hungry. You know, when I think we talk about God creating people or giving them consciousness, we think about how, you know, he wants the manifestations of his names to be seen. But with regards to the angels, we kind of have to start from the other way around. If I didn't understand incorrectly, we see all this beauty and decoration and adornment. And it makes sense that, you know, obviously, like if someone walked into my house, they would say, oh, okay, like someone did this purposefully, like someone is seeing these things, someone chose this decor specifically because there is a kind of person that can appreciate it, that can see it and enjoy it. So I like that, looking at the universe, we kind of have to think about it like it's still very intuitive to me. So this part makes it a little easier to understand, that they're there and there's a beauty that requires observance and witnessing. One thing that I didn't really understand with this paragraph was the sustenance of spirits and nourishment of hearts in this boundless beauty of art looks to the angels and spirit beings. So I could understand there's infinite beauty and infinite grace and infinite manifestations of God's names. So we, because we are limited, we can't really do justice to contemplate all of that beauty. So I get, you know, there must be other beings who can kind of maybe fill that gap. But from this sentence, I feel like they also have a role that looks to the sustenance of my spirit or the nourishment of my heart. So I know we're nearing the end. Maybe that's something we can think about, especially because Dr. Yamina also said, you know, the angelic side of creation. Maybe that has something to do with this. So what, apart from thinking of angels as these, you know, separate entities, how can I start seeing them so that they actually nourish my heart or provide some sort of sustenance for my spirit? Like, what does that, what kind of interaction do I have to do with them so that that's what I get out of my communication or my understanding? If anyone has any other questions or comments, we have 2 more minutes, or any feedback. Now is the time.
Nur Banu. I will just say that this was just the opening, and the next couple of paragraphs really get into, you know, the way that we can use the universe to discover this illuminated, very real presence that we do take for granted exists, like you were saying. And it's exciting. It is very exciting to have words and sort of like a map to help us use the universe to see more into this invisible but very real, illuminating presence that is acting on our hearts and is a very much so alive in ourselves and in everything around us. So just almost like a come next week and let's see how beautiful the next paragraphs are. And I saw Isra also unmuted, so I'm going to let you speak, Isra.
Sarah, could you share your comment? Also, you wrote a comment.
Yeah, so my comment was, I really love that last sentence in the last paragraph that we discussed. It says, this means that boundless varieties of angels and spirit beings. And for me, that just, you know, it exploded something that I, you know, like that whole Sunday school knowledge of angels. Like now this is saying angels and spirit beings. That just opens up the whole language into something magical, something we don't know. There's something big happening that is not just, you know, Malik al-Maut, like the angel of death, or the archangel Gabriel. Like, this is a totally different real thing we're talking about. Boundless varieties of angels and spirit beings are necessary to perform those duties and to fill and inhabit the mighty mosque of the world with their ranks. I truly, that part of it was extremely amazing, especially because he spent so much of this very descriptive wording of the decorations and the decked out embroideries and the beauty necessitates admirers, because why would you make something so incredibly beautiful and then nobody's going to see it? Which is what I always thought about the ocean. Like, okay, everything that's amazing is where nobody sees it. So for me, it never made any sense. Like, why is there 90% of it is undiscovered and it's like, subhanallah. So there's something there that does speak to our human reasoning, that does necessitate, and I like the way that reverse thinking, like you were saying, Nur Banu, is being called on us to think and really question. Beauty requires a beholder, like love requires a beloved. That's just how we're made. A hungry person requires food. So because there is this incredible embroidery and this very detailed decoration, it necessitates a spectator, and then spectators are filling the mighty mosque of the world. For me, that was just exciting. So it's like, wow, there's a real there are real inhabitants here. There are real, you know, neighboring things that are real. So bismillah to discovering that.
I can see, yeah, you have your hand raised.
Yes, I joined a little late. I apologize. So if this was already discussed, please forgive me. So I think, you know, when I read this, like a couple of questions came to mind, like, so like as Sarah said, like, you know, I think the last time, honestly, we talked about angels, or at least in my experience, was Sunday school. And I learned the names of the angels, who they were, what they did, and then never gave it a thought. So it's kind of like the question comes to me where it's like, okay, if God in his almighty power can say be and it is, why did he create these angels to do these tasks? And why is that important to me? Like, why should I even care? Because it's like they're unseen beings, and so like, why should I, like, these are the questions, like, why should I like spend my time and energy like thinking about this and wondering about this and reflecting about this? So truly there's in me a disconnect of some sort, and I guess, you know, I'm trying to kind of bridge that gap. It's really hard for me to understand Said Nursi's text. So when I read it, kind of just went past my head, to be honest. So maybe he does answer that question, but I would be curious and open to, I guess, yeah, truly confirming that the presence of angels, because I think in my day-to-day life, the truth is I don't confirm it, and I don't even think about it or think that there's a need for it, I guess.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, those were some of the questions I posed to the group at the very beginning, just because I think that's sort of the common attitude towards angels in Muslim circles, broadly speaking. I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. So if everyone's plagued by the same questions, we are meeting next week at 8 p.m. inshallah. We'll continue. If you guys want me to read more or read less, or if you want to talk more, please let me know. And any last comments? Or we can stop here, inshallah. Okay.
I just want to remind myself as a homework, hopefully. It's something that Dr. Yamina said earlier in this meeting. She said something like, the more we live from ruh, from the spirit, the more we are able to perceive angelic side of the world. And that's, I want that to be my goal. I don't know if I can do this week, like, achieve this, but maybe inshallah this journey of, and then the other thing, just as we're not just born in flesh, the universe isn't just matter, and so angels represent something there. I want to intend to, Dr. Yamina, if you want to add on to the homework or refine the homework, please do so. And yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Jazakumullah khair, Dr. Yamina and the team.
Thank you. Reflect on the question. There must be a wisdom in the questions coming at the end through Tasniya, the questions that we started with. And so maybe everyone can try to answer the questions. And the aim is not to answer the questions, but to become alert and to have questions. The more we have questions, the more the text will speak to us and answer our questions, inshallah. So just nourish that consciousness and the need to have and to keep in mind that this is a pillar of faith. It's not something that I can just say, okay, I didn't get it, so pass. Inshallah. Thank you, especially Nur Banu, Sarah, and everyone else. Fi amanillah.
Yamanillah.
Nur Banu,
Yes.
would you know what it means by spirit beings?
I can check the Turkish for you.
Ruhaniyat, I think.
Ruhaniyat is my guess, yeah.
Is that not us?
Maybe we're in it. We have ruh, but I'm not sure. That's another thing we can contemplate until next week, inshallah. Okay, guys. I'll do the ending, inshallah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Al-Fatiha ma salawat. Okay.